What is Axion?
Axion is an AI platform that manufacturers use to detect the earliest warning signals that they have an emerging issue impacting their customers. Product failures are this massive problem across industries. American manufacturers are increasingly trying to compete by releasing really high-quality products and delivering exceptional customer experiences. And if your product's failing all the time, you cannot position your product as high quality. A world in which AI learns about customer issues, but then strategically uses that to ideate the next generation of products is a really exciting world.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Rowson from Salesforce Ventures, and I'm here with Daniel First, CEO and founder of Axion. Salesforce Ventures recently led Axion's Series B round, and we're here to talk about why the partnership matters, how AI is evolving, why manufacturing is one of the most exciting frontiers for AI right now, and what it really takes to scale a company that's defining a new category. Daniel, for those who don't know, What is Axion?
Axion is an AI platform that manufacturers use to detect the earliest warning signals that they have an emerging issue impacting their customers. So picture a medical device manufacturer like Medtronic. They release devices. All physical products fail. They might be trying to figure out, do we have a recall? Is there an emerging problem that the products are failing? They'll use Axion to understand, number one, is there an emerging issue? Number two, how to investigate that issue across many different information streams, ranging from telematics and fault codes to software logs and other data sets, both external and internal, and then ultimately solve the problem at the earliest warning signal. And so this is used not just for medical devices, but it's used in, by Harley Davidson for motorcycles, for home appliances, by SharkNinja and others, and Husqvarna, even like lawnmowers. And so really it's all about learning about the earliest warning signals that you have an emerging problem.
Maybe for those who aren't as sort of intimately familiar with the manufacturing industry, why is quality such a big issue for them?
Right. So what's really interesting is that right now, American manufacturing is booming, but product failures are this massive problem across industries. So on the one hand, you have some of the largest players in aerospace and automotive that are just being debilitated by major, plane crashes or billions of dollars lost in recalls.
We've seen the news.
Yes. And also, with the whole data center build out, it turns out that downtime in data centers is not great. And so I think the deeper reason is that American manufacturers are increasingly trying to compete with more commoditized markets by releasing really high quality products and delivering exceptional customer experiences. And if your product's failing all the time, you cannot position your product as high quality.
But how are you seeing enterprises really realize the ROI for their AI investments, and how is Axion helping deliver on that?
Yeah, I think the LLMs are progressing really quickly, and it's super impressive how fast they're improving. But when it comes to very advanced verticals like in manufacturing, there's a tremendous amount of specialization that you need in order to have a really successful use case. So for example, in our world, where we're helping aerospace manufacturers like Boeing or HVAC manufacturers who are making critical components for data centers, there's often a lot of failures that these products have in the field in the hands of customers that can cause downtime. There's a tremendous amount of gap between what the LLMs can do and what enterprises need in order to actually capture ROI from it. So one, very often there's a lot of expertise that somebody who's an HVAC engineer has about the way that one of the products is working. LLMs don't have access to that expertise. It might not even be in any data system. So something that's really critical is to build a system that's able to incorporate human expertise from somebody who's been working on that system for many decades into the platform, and this is really a product and design choice to have systems where the AI says, hey, I think this HVAC system is breaking in a certain way. If somebody says, no, that's not really how it works, they need to be able to embed that knowledge directly into the platform. What are you seeing in terms of, there's obviously from a Salesforce Ventures standpoint, you're probably meeting hundreds, if not thousands of AI companies right now. What are the ones that you're really excited about? What sort of thesis do you have about AI right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's really, really exciting, and we've invested heavily in AI in the past couple of years. Obviously made some significant investments on the AI infrastructure side in companies like Hugging Face and Anthropic and Together AI, amongst others. And then we've also been spending a lot of time on the application there. And I think, kind of to your point, it's really interesting because obviously the technology is evolving at such a rapid pace. But in terms of how enterprises can actually use it, it's perhaps a little bit more laggard. And that's due to, a number of reasons. It's to do with understanding what the most applicable use cases are. It's to do with implementation within an enterprise. It's to do with procurement and, a lot about long procurement cycles. So it definitely means that the pace at which maybe the real ROI of the new technology is being delivered is perhaps, slower than the technology itself is evolving. But it's definitely coming, and we're seeing a number of really, really exciting companies that really understand how to work closely with large enterprises, help them identify what their key pain points are and how AI technology can really help resolve some of those pain points, and then really work through that kind of transition rather from more legacy tech stacks, more legacy data processes, more legacy workflows as well, to something that is truly kind of AI native and AI first. And we're seeing that happen real time. But it does feel like we're only at the very, very beginning of enterprises actually seeing and realizing a lot of the
Yeah.
value that they will going forward.
How did you? What made you initially excited about Axion?
It's a great question. So we've obviously been spending a ton of time in AI, as mentioned, and also looking very closely at different opportunities in vertical AI. Um, and our thesis there has really been there are a lot of legacy industries that historically have been pretty laggard in how they've adopted new software and new technology tooling. And actually, that the advent of AI and these new models really offers an opportunity for a sort of step change in terms of their processes and for huge productivity gains. And often these are industries where historically there has maybe been a lot of unstructured data sets that have been difficult to integrate, where actually the software and workflow tooling on top has not been particularly advanced. These are industries that are potentially still very much living in email or on Excel to do a lot of their internal processes. And manufacturing as a space really stood out to us for a number of those reasons. So we were spending a lot of time looking at interesting companies that were working in and around the manufacturing space and seemed to really understand the opportunity that's out there. Um, and that's really when we came across you guys, when we heard about Axion, and obviously showing some really phenomenal traction, selling into what is actually a very, very difficult customer base to sell into. Like, you clearly understood the market, you clearly understood the customer. And we felt like you'd found a really, really interesting and important wedge on the quality side. And, again, we've spoken about this, but like time to value, particularly with the new technology, is so important. And the fact that you'd identified a wedge that was really speaking to customers, very clearly speaking to customers, and then driving incredible expansion across the organization from that point, was awesome to see.
I also think that a lot of AI startups will initially target, SMB or YC companies, and then they move to mid-market, and then they move to enterprise. From your vantage point, do you think that building AI for the enterprise requires something, fundamentally different from, or is it just, applying what worked in mid-market at a larger scale?
I do think it requires a fundamentally different approach. I think you have to design your platform and your tooling for the enterprise, and that requires thinking about governance and permissioning and security in a way that you don't necessarily have to if you're just selling into SMBs. I think it also involves a lot more patience. Ultimately, these are very long sales cycles. You have to really understand that process. There are a number of different decision makers and touch points you have to have in order to land that deal. Very, very different from what's often effectively a self-serve product. So I think you need to have like pre-existing knowledge of how to sell to enterprise, and you need really, really deep knowledge of the sector you're selling into, and specifically like the problems that they are facing. And there are a lot of, more generalized, interesting AI tooling that is not necessarily purpose-built for example, manufacturers. But I mean, that's almost a question to turn back to you. Manufacturers are a kind of unique beast on some level. So kind of what have been your learnings around what makes sense for manufacturers today and really kind of how to really provide for that customer base?
I think something that is really true about the personality of manufacturing enterprises is that they're extremely process oriented. They have a weekly meeting. For example, let's say we work with Cummins. They're a power systems manufacturer that's used in mining and in data centers. There's going to be weekly meetings where people are reviewing what are the top new issues that could be causing downtime. There are governed dashboards. There are official lists of what are the projects. So you can, it's quite easy to spin up, AI prototypes that are able to accomplish all sorts of magic. But ultimately, if the enterprise already has the official system that they're using and the official meetings and the official roles and responsibilities, and it's not yours, nobody's going to adopt it. And so something that we've seen from a product standpoint that's really critical is to have the ability to configure the platform so that it matches what people need to use in their weekly meetings and their daily workflows, which means they have to have the data sets that they usually have available. It means that ideally they can drive the downstream actions, which for us might be opening up an engineering change or issuing a notice to a supplier about an emerging issue that's causing service events. So I think figuring out how to embed it into the enterprise's processes is something that is probably more of a big deal in manufacturing than in other industries.
Yeah. And I mean, another thing you touched on as well, all of the different data sets that obviously at Axion you've spent a lot of time like understanding, integrating with. That's obviously a big challenge for manufacturers. How have you approached addressing that and kind of helping them solve the data issue?
Yeah. Really, for us, what's really critical in getting in adoption is having very quick wins. And so one of the big things that we do is whenever we'll meet a manufacturing enterprise, for example, we work with SharkNinja. So they'll make, slushy machines and vacuums. We'll go to them and, rather than start with 50 data sets, which is maybe where we might be with an enterprise after 2 or 3 years, we might start with just a handful of data sets. It might be telematics and IoT. It might be their, software updates, or it might be just issues that different people are seeing in the field. And we'll take these and we'll put it into the platform. And if we can show to somebody who's really an expert in that product, for example, if they're the expert in the slushy machine, and you're able to show them, hey, there's a new issue that the team may have not been aware of, that's really how you get a tremendous amount of buy-in, because then people say, oh, well, in general, with these issues, every day that you don't know about the issue could be costing hundreds of thousands of dollars in returns or warranty or millions of dollars. And so learning about these things really quickly has a massive ROI. So I think the critical thing is to crawl and then walk and then run, and really figure out how to crawl in the right way and show value really quickly. No 12-month pilots without results.
Yeah, absolutely. I think time to value is so crucial, particularly as companies are making really big investments behind AI. What have been maybe the biggest challenges as you sell into manufacturers and kind of, I suppose, present the vision for what ultimately Axion can be? Because obviously you've come in selling into sort of quality, and that's such a huge pain point for them. But how do you begin to articulate sort of the bigger vision for what Axion could be for these customers?
Yeah. I think what's happening is that the role of quality is undergoing this huge shift, where it used to be that quality was about, okay, we sold cars. Let's say, I'm selling Nissans. I just look at like what parts dealerships are swapping out, and quality really was in this very defensive role. You're trying to defend the company from too much warranty cost. And now what's happening actually is that there's a tremendous amount of data sets that are flowing into quality. And instead of defense, quality is actually offense. It's actually about empowering the product strategy team, the product team, the engineering team, the marketing team with the top insights about why are these products failing customers' needs. So for example, one of our customers, they released an ice cream machine. In 2023, they actually started getting some negative reviews because people found that that powder was clogging the machine. And actually what was happening is that they thought that people would use this for at-home ice cream, whereas people actually were having fitness influencers use this to create, protein ice cream. And this was like a huge, too much protein powder. Yeah, and it wasn't made for that. But so, on the one hand, you've got to fix that issue. On the other hand, you can pass that on to the product strategy team, which then elevates the role of quality, because now it can become the idea for a new product, a protein ready, ice cream maker. Yeah. What are you seeing, at the application layer? What are the themes of the startups that you're most excited about?
I think that one thing that has become clear, certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, is that yes, the underlying technology is important, but actually the ability to go in and really help enterprises identify the right use cases for them and kind of identify where they should be starting in terms of their AI strategy is important. And then B, being really quite hands-on in terms of how you help the enterprise implement your tool, and how you really encourage usage across the organization. Because I think the shift to AI-based tooling is really a step change for the buyer themselves, but also for every individual within the organization. And it really shifts their workflows as well. So the companies that we're seeing be really successful here are companies who really understand how to deliver time to value at pace, and then B, how to actually sustain the usage of their tooling by really getting buy-in from users across the organization. And I think that's something that cannot be underestimated when we think about how to drive real traction for AI within enterprise.
Yeah, I think that that one of the big themes that we see is that it used to be perhaps that a lot of the decisions were purely driven by IT or CIO, but now more and more CEOs are empowering business leaders to partner with the CIO to say, hey, this actually works with my workflow, or hey, actually we need this with AI. And I think that's actually quite a very good thing. We're getting a lot more buy-in from the business leaders that we collaborate with, whether it's on product or P&L or or engineering. So what have been some of your initial thoughts on, as you hear about all of these different customers that we have that are Salesforce customers, but then also are using Axion? What were some of the thoughts you had about the way that these two systems could be brought more together?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting and exciting to see where there are shared customers and actually the amount of pull from existing Salesforce customers to bring in Axion as well. And I'll say that that's not something we always see with our portfolio companies. When we invest, we're investing because we think there's a fantastic founder, there's a fantastic opportunity in the market. Maybe there are some different ways that as a group we can help support those companies. But we're not always seeing the same amount of true kind of opportunity for real deep product integration that we are potentially seeing with Axion. And I think it stems from the fact that there is a lot of data that sits within Salesforce that the Axion platform can leverage. And equally, Axion has access to a ton of different data sets that are very complementary and can really augment what sits within Salesforce as well. So there's an opportunity, I think, to sort of tie these two pieces together more closely to provide shared customers with a much more sort of fulsome view of the data across their organization and the opportunity to build workflows and agentic workflows on top of that. And I think, as Salesforce Agentforce continues to expand, I'd love to see how the two companies can play together in that as well.
Yeah, something that was really funny to me is that as we were actually going through the process of of making the decision that we were going to partner together on the Series B, one of our customers, they make machinery for mining, and they had this bizarre issue that this machinery that was supposed to be really robust, it kept on malfunctioning, and there were all of these. There was all this information in Salesforce that was recording why this was happening and the investigations. It turned out that the machinery was very loud, but it was being placed in mines that were close to residential areas. And what was happening is that because it was so loud, the miners were putting blankets on top of the machinery, and these things, cost hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, when there's failure, right? And he was actually following this happen over and over again in Salesforce. And he literally sent me and my team a screen recording where he said, I know my engineering team is working on this. I don't know if they've fixed it. Why am I staring at this, horrific issue continue to happen over and over again at all of these different mines when maybe my engineering team has already figured out the root cause? Maybe they already have, whether it's a software update or some service bulletin that needs to happen, so that to me really like brought to life like, okay, there really should be a more unified experience here.
It's such a great example because it's like the information is available, the data points are all there, but you need something to tie it all together. And sort of without that, it's hard for any manager or any senior leader to really have like the full perspective on what exactly is going on and what is causing the issue over there. And manufacturing is obviously such a complex industry as well. There is so much data to pull together. And
yeah, I think one of the things that I didn't appreciate, when I founded the company, but now I see is that I think there's a reason that in manufacturing, it's so critical to pull together all this information to root cause the issues. The reason is that, and I think that a lot of the world in tech doesn't appreciate this. When software breaks, it's a deterministic problem. You can always just go and figure out what was the piece of code that caused the issue. Whereas when a power system goes down or something, an HVAC malfunctions or an airplane, you actually have to Sherlock Holmes assemble lots of information and actually use inductive reasoning to try to come up with a hypothesis. Is this happening only in hot weather regions? Is it across models that share a certain subsystem? And so I think that's why this whole idea of like assembling all this information becomes so critical.
Yeah. And I mean, to take your kind of blanket example, it's the real world. It's not a closed system. There's a ton of stuff of data points that you don't even know you need to be taking account of. Like, do you necessarily know, we should actually be monitoring what temperature it is outside, or should we be monitoring how loud these machines are and then thinking of what the second and third order effects of them being louder?
Yeah, you never know. We had this other funny case where one of the manufacturers of headsets, suddenly the headsets were the scroll wheel kept on malfunctioning, and users were just returning these in droves. And it was supposed to be this like really important product launch for them. So the launch was going really, really badly. And so we were brainstorming with them, like, how could we try to figure out, like, why is this happening? It wasn't happening with the other headsets. And so we actually started linking up to, they have, parts teardown database and return parts analysis. It turned out that the technicians were noting there was a lot of orange dust that was accumulating in the headsets when they realized that, and there's a debate whether it's nachos or Doritos, but these operators.
Or in the UK, what's it?
Oh, what's it? I don't know about that. Are they better than nachos?
I would say they're better, but I do have a bias.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll have to.
We'll have to try that later.
Yeah. But yeah, so it turned out that these people, they were eating nachos or Doritos all day and then flipping the scroll wheel on their headset, and this was just causing this massive failure of this product launch. It was pretty.
That's hilarious. And no one designing that product was sitting there thinking, oh, you know what? Someone's going to be sitting there eating some Cheetos.
No, they need to think about the Doritos more.
Yeah, they do.
Maybe that should be a part of every product development.
That should be the tagline for Axion. Think about the Doritos.
Think about the Doritos. Don't forget the Doritos. Remember the Dorito. We'll workshop
it.
Yeah. So one of the other things that you said that I think is really interesting is that I think quality has just been underserved for so long. And I think part of the reason that customers like what we're doing so much is that I think that there really hasn't been really great software built for quality. To your point that like historically a lot of these systems, they were just like systems of record. Nobody's created software because it was like kind of hard to see what the ROI was. But now that you have big data, quality is playing this like critical command center role in the organization. On the one hand, helping the service organization figure out how do we solve these like more complex L2, L3 escalations, helping marketing figure out what story should we tell about this product so that people aren't unhappy with its deficiencies, and helping product and engineering figure out what should we design in the first place? Where should we really invest a lot in really high quality suppliers when customers really care about those features, and where does it really not matter?
Yeah. I mean, it's such an incredible time because we're at this juncture where we're able to bring all the data together where you have the power of the LLMs, this incredibly powerful technology. And then we have companies like Axion who deeply understand their customer and are able to take some of those workflows, some of that institutional knowledge, that almost like intuition about why this thing impacts this thing and the fact this is breaking because someone's eating Doritos, and is able to sort of tie that in with the data sets and with the power of the LLMs. But it's not an easy thing to do. And it really takes, a unique combined skill set in terms of like understanding the technology, being able to work with the customer around their data sets, and being able to sort of really take a customer's knowledge and like embed that into a software.
Right, right. Yeah, we have customers that, for example, in motorcycles, the AI on its own, the LLMs, they can be really smart as long as they have access to information, but they might interpret it that, there's 3 different wire harness failures. But somebody who's an expert in that knows that there's 4 types of wire harnesses on these products and they fail in these like 6 specific ways, but that's only the 3rd type. And there's no way that AI would know that. And so and it's not in any system of record, it's just in people's heads. And so I think that one of the ways that you can give compounding value to manufacturers is by enabling people to take that knowledge, create a digital twin of the way that these products are failing, and this is something that then becomes accessible to everybody. I want to pick up on something else that you mentioned, which is you talked about agents. How do you think about the agents that exist today in Salesforce or Agentforce, if you want to talk about that, and how in a future state these agents could be interacting with Axion or other platforms?
Yeah, Agentforce and the progress with Agentforce is really exciting. It's really a way to leverage all of the data and all of the power that sits within Salesforce to help customers really realize value for their AI initiatives. But it's also so important that Salesforce works closely with other third parties who are accessing different data sets, who are building, agentic workflows that will be complementary to Agentforce. And ultimately, we see all those things as very much complementary and interoperable. So I think, having a partner like Axion is a fantastic opportunity to really augment what exists within Agentforce already and to continue to build, better product for customers.
Yeah, I think that what's really interesting is if you picture a future world where Axion has AI agents that are automatically detecting when there's an emerging issue impacting customers, investigating it, root causing it. Ultimately, there's all of these downstream actions that need to be taken after an issue is detected and root caused. Number one, you might need to issue a field service bulletin. You might want to update knowledge documents for call center when they, learn that somebody's calling about this. Ultimately, if you envision a world where each of these different departments has AI agents who are completing their tasks, it's going to be pretty interesting, if on the one hand you have the world of quality, engineering, supply chain, and manufacturing, where they're detecting and scoping these issues. But as soon as the issue is scoped and root caused, this needs to trigger all of these downstream fixes or countermeasures. And I think that a world where Axion's agents are talking with agents that are updating knowledge documents in Salesforce, or for call center agents, or issuing field action or field repair activities. I think that there's quite a lot there that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's such an exciting vision. And I suppose like really looking out, say forward 3-5 years, how do you think AI is going to shape how we build and deliver products, and how, software is used in organizations, including manufacturing, but really sort of more holistically as well?
Yeah, so I'm going to steal a phrase that actually I was just chatting with the CEO of one of the data center manufacturers, and he said, "Can Axion help me have customer-centric, AI-driven product development?" And I was like, "That's a bit of a mouthful, so I don't know."
A lot of buzzwords.
Yeah, I love the buzzwords. I think he had initiative around this, but I think that what's happening today is that people they create products, and then they release the products to customers, and then pretty much the engineering team moves on, and then you have the whole world of Salesforce and people responding to all these customer issues. And what we actually see is that feedback loop from, hey, customers are experiencing all these issues on the products, to what should the next generation of products be, is very broken. People are creating next generation of products without really understanding where did the products let customers down. And so I think that a world in which AI learns about customer issues, but then strategically uses that to ideate the next generation of products is a really exciting world.
Yeah, completely. Like the feedback loop becomes a lot faster. Like the ability to iterate again is rapidly accelerated. And I think it's not just like the AI being able to iterate on the underlying product to be built itself, but also the AI iterating on the processes by which you build it and saying, actually that was kind of an inefficient way for us to like understand whether we should make this alteration or not. And actually in future we could do it this way instead. It's interesting because it obviously applies in the tangible physical world of manufacturing, but also even when we think about like the future of software development, it's very parallel.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's also what you said is it's really spot on. Very often people think about all the new ideas of what we can do, but also just knowing what doesn't matter is really important. So we have an appliances manufacturer that we work with, and they had always been investing a tremendous amount in having, very robust, high quality casing for the device. And they even would point to us to reviews online where people would talk about how robust the casing was. But interestingly, we were able to mine a lot of the internal and external data and did this whole analysis that even though people would mention this, it actually didn't matter for the star rating. It didn't matter for the product NPS. And what that meant is that you actually could create entirely new product lines because you were no longer so cost constrained by investing so much in this casing. And it turned out people really didn't care about it. It was just something they were mentioning.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I wonder how many examples there are of that, where a product is designed around a feature that actually the
Really doesn't
customer
matter.
base doesn't care about.
Yeah. And also, I think that the other thing that's been really interesting for me to see is how profitability and innovation are so intertwined, where people might have really cool ideas for new products that are going to solve huge pain points for customers. But then if creating that product is not going to be profitable, they're not going to do it. But if you're able to reduce the amount that people are going to return the product or realize that certain features don't matter, suddenly this is going to unlock a ton of innovation. Yeah. And I think what's going to be really interesting is, if today it's an extremely human intensive process to figure out what products should we create, what issues are customer facing on products, and how do we, people can only do that for probably their top 10% of SKUs, which means that at most companies, let's say you have 400 SKUs, maybe only 10% of them are truly competitive. What would it look like for us to be in a world where, because AI is automating this feedback loop, actually all of a company's SKUs are competitive in their categories and they're all innovative and responsive to customer needs? I think it's just it could change the world.
Completely. Yeah. Reducing inefficiency will mean we can massively more invest behind new innovation and new ideas and sort of really drive productivity in that way as well.
Yeah.
Exciting. So before we close out, obviously I have raved about Axion and we are so excited to partner with you. But I'd love to know why you picked Salesforce Ventures, given all the interest you had to lead the latest fundraise.
Yeah, we had a number of customers really banging on the table for us to be building these deep product integrations with Salesforce. And because they, a lot of them, they've made many of the Fortune 500 manufacturers that we work with, they've already made the decision that they're going to be using Salesforce for call center service and many other parts of their organization. And they were, hopping back and forth between Salesforce and Axion, and they wanted a unified experience. So I think from a product standpoint, there was a big push. But then as we got to know the ventures team, I think that it was just everybody was really great to work with. There were a lot of really exciting ideas about how Salesforce and Axion could partner on go-to-market, not just product, and have more of a better together go-to-market motion, which has been really exciting. And I think the third thing is that Axion, we really are oriented towards the enterprise. And I think that a lot of venture capital in Silicon Valley is really not oriented that way. A lot of the pattern matching, the way that people think about go-to-market is not oriented that way. But for us, everything that we do really is about selling to these massive enterprises in aerospace and medical devices. And we actually felt that when we spoke about Salesforce, about the vision for the company and how we were going to achieve it, Salesforce Ventures really understood the vision about how the company was going to evolve, the way that we would expand our relationship with customers, and so I thought there was a lot of shared DNA between the two.
Yeah, of course we are enterprise first always, and do deeply understand the trials, tribulations, but also amazing
Yeah.
opportunity that can come from selling into large enterprises.
The same trauma, but the same jubilation when it actually works.
Daniel, thank you so much for this conversation, and also for the work you and the Axion team are doing to redefine what's possible. Really, really excited to be partnering with you all, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks.